Good morning. Good morning. I have to say, I'm really happy to see you here because I have given this talk about 100 times in my head to myself. And it's such a relief to be able to say it out loud, but I'm not sure which version you're going to get. I have it, but I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not all that familiar with the script today, but it's something I very much want to talk to you about because I've been. It's been such a big part of my practice for the last couple of years, and just a really quiet, almost not noticing part of my practice. And yet the thing that I find I look forward to most every week. We're well aware that it's been almost 2 years since the invasion of Ukraine. And you know, it was such, I mean, there's so much of that in the world now. Everywhere we look, it's like there are masses of people leaving home, living in tents, moving. And there was something about that particular time when overnight there were these images of mothers and children and children with their stuffed animals and saying goodbye to their fathers and husbands who they didn't know if and when they would ever see again. And I, anyway, felt this, how could this be? And this utter sense of helplessness. And I do know one Ukrainian man in my life. He comes every summer, has been for years and years. Started when he was very young. I think he's 30 now, Alec, at the farmer's market. So this is my only acquaintance with Ukraine. And then these images of life in Ukraine, that just seem people in coffee shops, people having coffee in coffee shops, and scarves tied in knots, and the puffy jackets, just like we have puffy jackets, and banks of flowers on street corners, which is a particular love of mine. And then the old people carrying a box of their belongings, and nobody, going who knows where, just to get away from the bombing, and people refusing to leave. And one other particular image of an elderly woman, old, she was just old, and she refused to leave her apartment, and it was completely bombed out. And she had cleaned up glass and dust, and had sort of fashioned a kitchen table without, heat, without running water, not knowing where food was coming from. And on the table, she had a jar with a single purple flower in it. And that has so much stayed with me. And then, of course, we heard about the torture and the massive graves, and just the reality that Simone Weil says, that all war takes place far from hotbeds. And when this summer, Alec couldn't be here last summer, he couldn't get in, he couldn't get out. So he returned this summer, and she's so surprised to see you're here. And the only appropriate thing to say seemed to be, "I'm so sorry." And he said, "Thank you." And then we went on to fruits and vegetables. So what I fell into through a friend who lives in Philadelphia was the opportunity to sit with a Ukrainian Zen priest in Odessa. It is through Tree Leaf, a website that exists, as far as I understand, for people who, that's their only place to sit. And I've never gotten clear what the connection is exactly, but he had a friend there, or he reached out to them, something happened. And I found out that every Sunday we would have the opportunity to sit with him in Odessa. And that just seemed like that was just the thing to do. I just wanted to be there. And so I did that, not knowing what to do. It's sort of like coming here for the first time, where you feel a little awkward and like, what's the code? What do you do? And so it's a Zoom screen like this, all the little boxes. And so I just showed up, and then at 8:00, the one on the screen that was Washeen said good morning and thanked us for being there to sit for peace, to join him in sitting for peace. And he explained that we would begin with the Heart Sutra. And each week it would either be in Russian or Ukrainian or English, alternatingly. And we would sit for 40 minutes, and it would be followed by the verse of atonement said 3 times. So he had the bells and the Makugyo, and he took us through the Heart Sutra, and then at the end, he would. This is it's so great. He had this says zazen. We all go into 40 minutes of zazen, and then he rings the bell and the verse of atonement. And what I have noticed over time gradually is that it's silence. There's no talking. We don't chat. How's it going? What's happening? How are you doing? There is none of that. There is none of that. There was one time early on that he said, we heard a lot of sirens and explosions this week. And then no more of that, no more. And at the end, he thanks us. We're sitting, that we remember the children in all wars all around the world. And he wishes us a good Sunday. And then he bows again. And then at some point, we wave, and at some point he started giving the heart symbol, and then at some point he started giving thumbs up. And then I noticed myself at some point that I'm sitting before my screen, and I'm giving the heart symbol, and I'm giving the thumbs up. And that we have the group of us, and you know how Zoom, you can't even see the faces. You don't really know who's there, but that we have this bond in Zazen and in silence and in real love among these strangers who are practicing for peace in the world in the 10 directions. And coincidentally, I guess, last week, I don't know what it was about last week. I should find my place in my, yeah, last week he spoke. I also want to say that it was about this time, it was when winter came last year. My ear is really tuned. I have stayed with the news about Ukraine. It's as though this has drawn me in. Appreciating particularly the letter from Ukraine that appears or has appeared from Masha Geshen, who embedded themselves early on and gave us reports of what it was really like among various soldiers, families, and I would listen for news about particularly Odessa. And last winter, Odessa was among the vast portions of Ukraine that lost the electrical grid was demolished, and so there was no heat, and Washington did disappear for 5 weeks. We didn't hear and didn't know, and we continued to show up, and we sat, and then he appeared, and at first he was in a different background. It's usually a room with the corner of a room with green walls and calligraphy behind him, and very calm and simple. And he was in a different background, just concrete, and then for a while he was outdoors, and now he has been for some time back in his the place we're familiar with. And so last week he spoke, and it was so uncommon. You could feel the whole Zen screen going forward, like what? And he said, they say that Zazen is good for nothing. And he said, sitting here with you is everything. And it's just it was a moment. It was a moment. So I have thought about that, and it occurs to me that that Washin made what now seems to me a deliberate decision to not talk about what's going on, to not give us the news, because it's not, we are doing Zazen together, and it is not just about Washin. Certainly it's not about Ukraine. It's about Zazen is beyond. I mean, it's here and it's beyond. And we know, we've heard so many times, haven't we? Zazen is good for nothing, suggesting to us that it is without our ego attachment. We're not trying to get something. We are already enlightened. Our practice affirms that. We sit on the cushion as in the center of timelessness. Katagiri says, in the center of timelessness, placing ourselves at the center of timelessness, and allowing and offering and allowing. I think that's Suzuki, offering and allowing whatever rises. So over the past 6 months or so, I have been, do we have a clock? What time is it?
It's
Okay, all right. I'm almost finished. I have been studying. I don't think that's too strong a word. I've been studying. I've been Dogen's fascicle on continuous practice. And it's 2 volumes. It's the longest of his fascicles. I have not read it all. I've read parts. It's Dogen, So it's like, what is this? And I've also listened to many commentaries, read commentaries, and listened to many talks that have been really helpful. But mostly I've been living with it, or what I've absorbed from it as a coma. Not even really aware of it. It's just been with me. And I started to realize that the themes that that were catching me, that were absorbing me, seemed to have great relationship to my sitting on Sunday with Washeen and the others. And that these themes, the themes of the Vasicle, really applied. And it's like, it's not, it's like all Zen teachings conflate into continuous practice. There really, in a sense, isn't anything new there. It's stuff we hear all the time. And I've also been reading about 10 minutes of Katagiri every morning, and I started to realize he really talks about nothing else but continuous practice, and never using the term, the phrase. And I really thought I would talk more about that today. And every time I sort of tried to get that together, I got so far into the weeds that I just thought, I can't do this. So it does seem to me that it really comes down to two aspects of continuous practice that I'll try to say a little bit more about today. And it's why I chose these two readings on the program. Although how I envisioned it was in reverse. I had the other one on top. So for those of you online who don't have the program, I don't think, I'll read these two quotes. So the first one is from Continuous Practice, and it's Dogen himself. Your continuous practice creates the circle of the way. By this practice, Buddha ancestors abide as Buddha. Don't abide as Buddha. Have Buddha mind. Become Buddha over and over, and on, and it is never cut off. And all of this depends on us and our continuous practice of the present. And then I stumbled upon the next quotation from Uchiyama Roshi that seemed to me to be saying the same thing, a little more directly. When I take care of my own life, I take care of the world as my own life. I do this moment by moment, and in each situation, I enable the flower of my life to bloom, working solely that the light of Buddha may shine. So what I have come to appreciate in this sitting with Washeen is that our practice, good for nothing as it is, really matters. It really matters. And it matters in the sense that we sit and we offer and allow. And it is a practice of letting go of the ego, the self-centeredness out of which we know so well creates all the suffering, ours and everyone's. And that we are deeply interconnected. We are Buddha nature. So how could it be anything else? That what we do affects everyone all the time. And this sitting on the cushion that is our practice as Dogen says, is the one true refuge. The one true refuge. And it doesn't mean that everybody should be sitting zazen. Very few people sit zazen. Very few people ever have sit zazen. And very few people ever will sit zazen, probably. So it's more than that. It's the true place of refuge because we are all on the circle of the way. We are all on the circle of the way. And that's just not us practicing. That's everybody. Because continuous practice is the core of life. It's life. It's living. And how many times have we heard that? That our practice is living our life. It's just living our life. So, it wasn't, well, it was a few years ago and sitting, that I realized that all of the conflict in Israel and Palestine is in me. And I realized that Putin is in me. The same fears, the same comparisons, the same desires, the same ambitions, sometimes the same hate. It's all in me. And it shows me that we are all on the circle of the way. All of us are practicing all the time, not just us Buddhists, all of us who have life, who are practicing with the mountains and the stars. And the difference, to the extent that there is a difference, and there seems to be, is that on the circle of the way, bodhicitta has not always yet arisen. Not yet. and we don't know when. And we sit with maybe belief because the practice goes beyond death, that maybe not in our lifetime. But the energy of life that is good. I mean, we do know that anytime, we do know that that is what prevails. We do know that. And it may not always appear to us in that way. And the other thing is that this practice of offering and allowing and letting go of our egos, you know, catching ourselves in the storyline out of which all suffering seems to bubble, and coming back. That this takes place off the cushion as well. And how I resisted that in the beginning. I heard that. I'd hear that. You know, carry your practice into, well, I had my hands full on the cushion, never mind off the cushion. But when you practice, when you sit, you can't help it. Eventually, it just, you start, it's in you. And I started to notice with this koan of continuous practice that the Brahma Viharas came up for me, and particularly the one of sympathetic joy, mudita, which is one I have loved for some time. And I began to see so much good in the world. And I began to realize that when I am swimming, I love to swim, I swim at lifetime, that when I am swimming with and for the Russians and the Ukrainians. I have in my ancient past spent time at the Russian baths in Lower Manhattan, sort of this cave of a place down in the basement. And in decades ago in Budapest, where there is a really wonderful Russian bath. And these places were brought by Russians when they came, when they immigrated, and so I have this sense of connection through these baths. And so when I swim, I think of, I mean, there they are with me. They are not probably enjoying the Russian baths and certainly not in Ukraine now. And I bring them into my swim. I am swimming with them and for them in the spirit of continuous practice in the 10 directions. And when I love flowers, and I try to have flowers every week. And when I work with my flowers, snipping them, changing the water, I am doing that with Washing and all Ukrainians, all the many millions of people in war, without homes, without knowing when or where they're going to be. And those coffee shops that I saw in the beginning on, the streets of Kiev, that city that one day looked like our city, and the next day, overnight, a shambles. So when I have my cup of coffee that I love, have my black walnut that I love, these moments of being really here with that coffee, appreciation and interconnection with all people who are not having coffee right now. So, thank you for being here. And it occurred to me this morning that I already have my next talk. It's volume 2. So thank you.